Dongju has no friends because of his overweight body, so during lunch he always eats alone in a quiet corner. In this school, he's almost invisible and no one pays attention to him. His only companion is loneliness. With his timid personality, he easily becomes a target for bullies. While trying to enjoy his meal, a senior student with a handsome face but a cruel nature approaches and mocks him with harsh, demeaning words. All Dongju can do is bow his head and stay silent. Whispers start to spread around the cafeteria, some filled with curiosity and others with pity, but no one dares to step in. Shame covers him completely, yet fear keeps him frozen in place. Just as Dongju is about to give up and bury his face in the lunch tray, a clear voice suddenly breaks the silence. The school's goddess, Yeji, has arrived. She knows well the bad reputation of the senior and decides she can't just stand by. Holding up her phone, she points it straight at the bully. His face immediately turns pale. He's a member of a well-known group in school, and if this embarrassing photo gets out, his image will be ruined. Stammering, he quickly begs her to stop, but Yeji is smarter than that. She smiles and calmly says she isn't taking a picture of him, she's taking a commemorative photo with her new friend, Dongju. Hearing this, the bully is stunned. The girl he secretly admired just publicly defended and befriended his victim. To him, it's a humiliation far more painful than any insult. The bully's arrogance disappeared in an instant. The Yeji effect spread quickly across the cafeteria as everyone saw the most popular girl in school take Dongju's side. The crowd immediately changed their attitude and gathered around him, asking questions and treating him like someone important. The sudden attention made Dongju puff up with pride, and a sense of victory lit up his face while the bully was completely forgotten, sitting blankly in the corner as if he had turned invisible. Dongju knew that this dramatic turn of fortune was all thanks to Yeji. She was the school's true goddess, beautiful, talented, and effortlessly admired by everyone. People longed to be close to her, yet her bright aura never made her arrogant or distant. On the contrary, Yeji carried a warm heart and a genuine sense of justice, always the first to stand up when something unfair happened. Dongju wanted to repay Yeji for her help, and he chose the most practical way to do it. He used money to express his deep gratitude. Under the bright lights of the school auditorium, Su Bin's skillful fingers danced across the piano keys, creating a mesmerizing melody. With his good looks and exceptional talent, Su Bin was the boy Yeji secretly liked. Although they had never officially dated, their friends were convinced they were a couple. Whenever she was teased about it, Yeji could only smile awkwardly, knowing better than anyone how distant she was from the shining boy on stage. After the performance ended and Su Bin received his award, he approached Yeji privately and said he had something to tell her. At that moment, a girl from another class sent someone to ask Su Bin to meet her, but he flatly refused and turned back to focus on his conversation with Yeji. His decisive action quickly became the source of a new rumor, and word spread fast that Su Bin and Yeji were dating. Deep down, Yeji wished it were true, but her rational mind reminded her that their relationship was nothing more than a close friendship from childhood. All the misunderstandings traced back to their first year of high school, when a seemingly deliberate act from Su Bin made Yeji's innocent heart believe he might feel the same way. That very moment, along with a video of the two holding hands that accidentally spread online, led everyone to assume they were a couple. By the time they reached their second year, Su Bin appeared to make their connection even more public, showing care for Yeji in front of everyone and sparking endless gossip among the girls in class. Yeji found herself trapped in that swirl of attention and decided it was time to reveal her true feelings. After watching the old video of her and Su Bin over and over, she gathered all her courage, believing the moment had finally come for them to become a real couple. But when she confessed her feelings with all her heart, what she received in return was a cold, emotionless rejection from Su Bin. After a long night nursing her own heartbreak, Yeji finally woke from her dream. She bitterly realized that Su Bin had never liked her. Now, as they stood talking alone again, her heart no longer fluttered and her mind felt completely clear. Every trace of affection she once had for him had faded away. Their conversation was now nothing more than the easy, natural exchange between two ordinary friends. Back in the classroom, the atmosphere instantly became lively. As Yeji shared her story, she calmly declared that Su Bin wasn't someone she could be with and concluded that maybe they were only meant to be friends. Her classmates immediately turned into self-proclaimed love experts, crowding around to analyze and offer all kinds of advice. Yet Yeji didn't seem to care. Amid the excited chatter, she quietly took out her lipstick and slowly added color to her lips. The simple, unexpected gesture caught the attention of the bespectacled girl sitting next to her, and just like that, the story of Yeji's unrequited love was left behind. That very lipstick became the bridge that led their conversation to the upcoming art festival. Yeji turned to Daeun and asked who she planned to go with. Daeun hesitated, admitting she hadn't decided yet, but a handsome boy nearby had suggested that she and Soo-bin perform a piano duet together. That simple suggestion planted a seed in Daeun's heart, and unfamiliar feelings began to grow. For the first time, the girl who had never worn makeup sneaked into the restroom to awkwardly apply a thin layer of lipstick. At that moment, Sena walked in, completely ignoring Daeun's shy expression. Sena told her that she needed to be more confident. Sena's words, combined with the quiet ache of thinking Yeji had stolen Soo-bin away, left Daeun's heart heavy, but she had no idea that an unexpected twist of fate was waiting for her. When Soo-bin asked to meet Yeji privately, Yeji was certain it would be a confession and prepared herself carefully, dressing up in her brightest look. Yet when Soo-bin revealed the real reason for their meeting, that the person he liked was Daeun, Yeji's world came crashing down. She stood frozen, unable to believe what she was hearing. The painful truth shattered all her beautiful illusions. And in that moment, Yeji decided she would take revenge on Soo-bin in her own way, even though she knew her heart had been deeply wounded and would take a long time to heal. That night, Yeji lay alone in her quiet room as congratulatory messages about the new couple kept flashing on her phone screen. Each line felt like a needle piercing her heart. The next morning at school, while Yeji was standing alone in front of the lecture hall, Soo-bin suddenly approached her. His concern came with an intimacy that felt almost like that of a real boyfriend, leaving Yeji completely confused. She couldn't understand why he had chosen Daeun, yet still treated her that way. But the cruelest blow was still to come. When Daeun appeared and witnessed the scene, Yeji suddenly felt out of place. The way Soo-bin looked at Daeun carried everything Yeji had ever longed for, and it made her already bleeding heart go numb. Meanwhile, in another corner of the story, Joo-hyuk's heart began to stir for his close friend, Sena. Standing in the hallway, he quietly watched her from afar, feeling the bittersweet taste of unrequited love. After a long inner struggle, Joo-hyuk clenched his fists, determined to find a way to win the heart of the girl he loved. He returned to class in high spirits and went to talk to Yeji again about her love life, but all he received in return was indifference from a heart still shattered by heartbreak. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by shocking news that broke the quiet atmosphere of the classroom. Dong-ju had just signed a contract with a management company. Everyone was stunned, and his neat, handsome appearance only made the news seem even more believable. They recalled that it was Yeji who had first helped him gain recognition, and the classmates began teasing that it was now Dong-ju's turn to help others. But Yeji wasn't paying attention. Her mind drifted towards Soo-bin, and when her eyes accidentally caught sight of him being affectionate with Daeun, the pain in her heart twisted even deeper. Throughout the lesson, Yeji sat like a lost soul, trapped in the painful memories of that day. This time, every detail returned to her mind with even greater clarity and cruelty. Soo-bin hadn't just told her he liked Daeun, he had asked Yeji to deliver his love letter, and even wanted her to announce their friendship publicly, online. Yeji faced his request like a knife twisting deep into her wound. Of course, she couldn't agree. All she could do was walk away in anger, leaving behind the shattered remains of her dream. During break time, Yeji ran into Daeun in the restroom. In the quiet space, a brief conversation unfolded. Daeun spoke innocently, thanking Yeji because she believed Yeji had endured the pain just to protect her. In response, Yeji said nothing. She simply turned and walked away in silence. Meanwhile, Dong-ju was excitedly boasting to Song-jan about his new status, but his roommate barely paid attention, his eyes fixed on the computer screen as he immersed himself in his own music. As for Yeji, fate seemed especially cruel. While walking with a friend, she unexpectedly ran into Soo-bin. An awkward silence hung between them. Sena, unaware of the situation, jokingly said she wouldn't get in the way of the couple, but the moment Daeun appeared, the smile on Sena's face instantly faded. Yeji knew that Soo-bin and Daeun would be attending the art festival together, and anger surged within her. She turned and walked away, her emotions boiling over. After 15 years of friendship, Soo-bin knew her well enough to sense something was wrong, so he hurried after her. But when his hand caught hers, no longer felt the warmth she once did. She responded with a cutting remark that left him stunned, forcing him to release her hand. Just as the tension thickened, Sena and Daeun arrived. When they asked if Soo-bin wanted to go somewhere else, he didn't hesitate to leave with Daeun. Yeji was left standing alone. The sweet memories she shared with him came rushing back. back, tearing at her heart. Anger consumed her as she struggled to understand why he had chosen an ordinary girl over her. Unable to hold back any longer, Yeji confronted Soo-bin to demand an answer, but all she received was a half-hearted explanation. The love she had once felt for him was gone, leaving behind only the cold ashes of resentment. To soothe her bleeding heart, Yeji began to plan her revenge. In stark contrast to Yeji's misery, Dongju was floating on cloud 9. After gaining sudden popularity, he was accepted by a management company but was never truly valued. When facing his manager, he became tense and submissive, flattering his superior in hopes of being liked. What he didn't realize was that the so-called star contract was nothing but a scam that ended up forcing him into a job as a hotel service staff member. Meanwhile, Songjun only learned about Dongju's supposed management deal from classmates and didn't pay much attention at first. His ears seemed tuned to block out all distractions. He could only hear the music playing from his computer. But when the truth about Dongju's deception came to light, the boy became the laughingstock of those who had once bullied him. Yeji happened to witness the group of seniors mocking Dongju. The flame of righteousness inside her ignited, and she was about to step in when someone else acted first. It was Songjun. After coldly driving the bullies away, he turned to Yeji and began scolding her. He sharply demanded that she delete her social media post related to Dongju, but Yeji firmly refused. Frustrated, Songjun muttered a few harsh words, then pulled Dongju away to protect her from being dragged further into the humiliation. At that moment, Dongju suddenly spoke up. He firmly declared that he had given the money of his own free will, and even publicly thanked Yeji with genuine sincerity. His honesty and gratitude touched Yeji's heart deeply, leaving her moved. The commotion only settled down when a teacher arrived and dispersed the crowd. Naturally, the incident couldn't escape the school's attention. Both Songjun and Yeji were summoned to the office. The two had been skipping classes frequently, and their grades had dropped. Songjun received a harsh lecture from the teacher, while Yeji faced a look of disappointment. She stayed silent through the criticism before making a firm declaration. She would participate in the art festival. After leaving the office, Yeji went to find Songjun again. She told him she wouldn't delete the photo, but offered a deal. If he agreed to join her in the art festival, she would reconsider. Songjun showed no interest and turned to walk away, but Yeji blocked his path once more. She insisted they could help each other. True to his lone wolf nature, Songjun immediately refused. Yet Yeji wasn't one to give up easily. She continued to stop him until she finally revealed that all she wanted was his musical talent. Only then did Songjun reluctantly nod in agreement. And just like that, two seemingly mismatched pieces were placed side by side. Under the warm afternoon sunlight, Sena followed online directions to a park for a transaction. The moment the seller turned around, her world seemed to stop for a beat. It was Da-eun, her close friend. The two froze, staring at each other in shock. The story had actually begun a few days earlier, when Sena came across a wallet online and instantly liked it. Knowing the price was a bit high, she tried to bargain and managed to get a good deal. Feeling pleased with herself, she happily went to the meeting point, unaware of the fateful encounter awaiting her. When Da-eun realized that the buyer was her classmate, she immediately offered to give the wallet for free. However, the moment Sena found out the wallet belonged to Da-eun, her attitude changed. Her excitement vanished, replaced by criticism and a sudden decision to cancel the deal, leaving Da-eun standing there awkwardly. Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, Soo-bin was dealing with his own troubles. He had just finished a piano performance at a bar when the owner called him over to discuss his payment. A heated argument broke out. Since Soo-bin was still a high school student, he didn't want to reveal his identity. He asked to be paid in cash, but the owner found it inconvenient and grew suspicious. His real identity was eventually exposed, and Soo-bin had no choice but to accept the payment through bank transfer. Leaving the bar in frustration, he stopped by a convenience store to buy milk for Yeji, as he always did. But when Yeji realized he was only there out of empty habit, she turned away coldly. At the same time, Songjun was doing his best to stay invisible. He stayed home to skip school and ignored all of Yeji's calls. But Yeji was not someone who gave up easily. She went straight to his house, woke him from a nap on the sofa, and got yelled at for it. Songjun angrily told her, "Leave," but that only made things worse. Yeji started a full-on noise campaign, determined not to let him rest. Even though Songjun angrily threw her out twice, his stubbornness still managed to win in the end. In the end, Yeji had no choice but to go to school alone, feeling the sympathetic looks of her classmates. In class, Soo-bin finally understood why Yeji had been so distant. The room was lively, only because of Saina and Juhya, the two comedians of the class. But to Yeji, everything felt dull and meaningless. Her gaze wandered across the room and landed on the corner where Soo-bin and Da-eun were talking. Seeing them together reignited her jealousy. Wanting to get right back at him, she decided she had to win over Songjeon and went to his house again. This time, instead of making noise, she chose silence. The unusual quiet made Songjeon suspicious. He cracked the door open to check, and Yeji immediately rushed forward. He tried to scold her, but she quickly covered him mouth. Still, her determined invitation eventually persuaded him to step outside. Guided by Yeji, they arrived in front of the school gate. When she saw Songjeon still hesitating to go in, a new idea flashed in her mind. She called a taxi, opened the door, and pushed him inside. The destination turned out to be the place she often went to clear her mind, a local animal rescue shelter. Songjeon was stunned when he saw where they had arrived. He had been tricked into coming there to help with cleaning. Just as he tried to leave, the owner blocked the exit, and with Yeji standing firmly in his way, he realized he had no escape. Reluctantly, Songjeon rolled up his sleeves and began to work. Meanwhile, Soo-bin couldn't hide his jealousy when he found out that Yeji and Songjeon had suddenly grown closer, though there was nothing he could do about it. The uneasy feeling left him distracted during his piano practice with Daeon. Both of them seemed lost in their own thoughts, and the session quickly fell apart. In contrast, Yeji and Songjeon discovered an unexpected sense of connection. It wasn't love, but they could talk freely and comfortably without holding anything back. Their conversation about the glass of milk that day became a sweet catalyst, sparking something new inside Songjeon. When Yeji returned to school, she ran into Soo-bin again. The familiar milk scene played out once more, but this time she said nothing and simply walked past him into the classroom. At that moment, Daeon was sitting in Yeji's seat. Seeing the two together, she immediately sensed that their bond hadn't truly been broken. She knew that if they got back together, there would be nothing she could do. Overwhelmed by a quiet sense of unease, she could only stand by and watch. Later, when Joo-hyuk asked if Songjeon would join the upcoming art festival, Soo-bin held his breath, waiting. Yeji's vague reply, "Maybe he will," only made his anxiety grow stronger. When the teachers started collecting registration forms for the art festival, Se-na and Joo-hyuk already had their performance planned, while Yeji was still alone because Songjeon hadn't shown up yet. Her situation suddenly became awkward. Some classmates suggested pairing her with Soo-bin, but the teacher rejected the idea, saying Soo-bin should team up with Daeon instead. As the three of them stood there in uneasy silence, Yeji's phone rang. It was Songjeon, telling her to hurry and submit their registration. Then, as if on cue, notification sounds echoed across the classroom. Everyone's eyes turned to their phone screens at once. The moment they saw the message, Soo-bin's heart sank. It turned out to be Daeon's doing. To completely sever the connection between him and Yeji, Daeon had deliberately sent a video of the two of them talking to the entire class, making it look like they were a couple. But the biggest shock wasn't for Yeji, it was for Soo-bin panicking. He thought Daeon had shared a photo of him working part-time at the bar. Only when he realized it was a different video and that his secret was still safe did he finally breathe a sigh of relief. Soo-bin's troubles seemed never-ending. When the teacher called him to the office about his unpaid tuition, painful memories came rushing back. Everything had started 6 months earlier when Daeon discovered his secret. She not only knew about his part-time job, but had also secretly taken photos as proof. Since she already had feelings for him, she chose not to expose the truth. Instead, she used that secret as leverage. Faced with her subtle threats, Soo-bin's pride wouldn't let him compromise. Later, after overhearing his conversation with the bar owner, Da-yoon realized he was genuinely worried about money. She offered to help, but Soo-bin firmly refused such a deal. That night, he messaged the bar owner, agreeing to take the job. The next afternoon, he met the owner again, relying on his talent and a small lie that he was a college student to secure the position. Even though he finally had enough to pay his tuition, the fear of being exposed constantly hung over him. Those very struggles were the reason he had coldly rejected Yeji at the park that day. He knew he couldn't be with her, no matter how much he wanted to. Now, all he could do was quietly watch her from a hopeless distance. Yet when Daeon noticed his gaze still lingering on her rival, the fire of jealousy inside her began to burn once more. When the teacher called their names, Daeon deliberately grabbed Soo-bin's hand and pulled him out of the classroom. Yeji could only stand still, watching them leave, as if her heart were being squeezed tight. Seeing her in pain, Songjeon quietly walked up and invited her for a stroll. In the teacher's office, while discussing the art festival with Daeon and Soo-bin, the teacher casually mentioned Yeji and Songjeon, saying they made a great pair. That offhand remark cut deep into Soo-bin's heart, leaving him overwhelmed by sadness and helplessness. Meanwhile, as Yeji and Songjeon walked together across the schoolyard, a familiar name suddenly appeared on her phone screen. It was the senior who had texted her before, asking to meet that evening. Feeling she couldn't refuse, Yeji reluctantly agreed. Noticing this, Se-na quickly ditched Joo-hyuk to join her best friend for the night. As the competition day drew near, Yeji sought out Songjeon to work on their performance together. At first, he seemed indifferent, but when she offered to write the lyrics herself, he reluctantly agreed. Seeing the doubt in his eyes, Yeji confidently said she could write about the emotions she had truly experienced. Her words made Songjeon realize she still hadn't moved on from Subin. A flicker of sadness crossed his face as he quietly walked away, unnoticed by Yeji, who was already lost in the flow of her writing. Meanwhile, in another corner, Joo-hyuk was completely absorbed in his own dream world. He imagined the crowd cheering for him, basking in the glory of his performance. With that fantasy in mind, he wore the expression of a melancholic prince, but the illusion shattered the moment he entered the dance studio and saw the other boys practicing hard. Jealousy hit him instantly, especially when he caught Saina looking at one of them with admiration, trying to win her attention. He attempted a few dance moves, but failed miserably. Remembering the compliment she had once given his rival, Joo-hyuk grew restless and frustrated. Out of options, he called Yeji to vent his feelings. Thanks to her straightforward advice, he finally realized what he needed to do to catch Saina's attention. With renewed determination, Joo-hyuk set his mind on winning her heart. Joo-hyuk began practicing as everyone else had left, leaving him alone in the training room. Even though he was exhausted after half a day, he tried to strike a cool pose to motivate himself. Meanwhile, Yeji had collapsed from fatigue and fallen asleep at her desk. When Songjeon returned and saw her sleeping soundly, he quietly took his antidepressant and lay down on the sofa, drifting into sleep. Horrific memories from the past surged back in his nightmares, jolting him awake, and he still could not regain his composure. Then he heard Yeji softly humming a melody, and at the same time, elsewhere, Subin was practicing the same piano piece while Dalin listened to the soothing tune and gathered the courage to confess her feelings. Yeji accidentally turned her chair, and their eyes met in a moment both awkward and meaningful. Songjeon broke the silence by praising her song, which surprised Yeji. She had approached him out of jealousy and a desire to take revenge on Subin, but now Songjeon genuinely showed affection for her, leaving her unsure how to respond. Her cheerfulness and optimism had unknowingly become a remedy that drew Songjeon to her. Though he was a patient struggling with depression, Songjeon praised her sincerely, but she responded with playful teasing. Just then, a message from the senior arrived. Yeji remembered her appointment and hurriedly left. At the same time, Songjeon's phone lit up with a message from his ex-girlfriend. She said that she was feeling better, and a rare smile appeared on his face. But the message also acted like a key, unlocking memories of negative news articles and harsh criticism that had once dragged him down and made him the center of public scrutiny. The classroom was quiet, with only Subin sitting alone, lost in vague thoughts. The teacher's comment about the chemistry between Songjeon and Yeji echoed in his mind. It wasn't until Saina came to get her things that Subin was jolted back to reality. When he heard Saina casually mention that Yeji would meet the handsome senior tonight, a spark of something flared inside him. At that moment, in a secluded corner, Yeji was facing the senior. Their conversation had just begun when Subin arrived. Yeji didn't even glance at him and continued talking to the senior, who was kneeling at her feet, crying and whining about being fired from his company. He kept insisting he was wronged, even though he knew he was at fault. Witnessing the man's shameless behavior, Subin's anger flared. He raised his hand, ready to teach him a lesson, but Yeji stopped him. She coldly set a condition. The senior had to go apologize to Dongju, and that was the only price for her help. After the man slinked away, Yeji finally turned to talk to Subin. She saw him just standing there, staring at her without a word. Losing patience, she threatened that she wouldn't help him anymore. After a brief struggle, Subin finally spoke, and he hesitantly suggested a hug. After a moment of awkwardness, Yeji wrapped her arms around him. She felt his inner turmoil and led him to the park to relieve his stress. They bounced together on the trampoline like children, but Yeji noticed that Subin still kept his heart closed. She held up 5 fingers, a familiar gesture that brought back memories for Subin. Each finger represented a promise, an apology, an emotion only the two of them could understand. Subin chose the finger that symbolized an apology. Finally opening up, Yeji began to complain, but before she could finish, Subin's phone rang. It was the bar owner, and he had to step aside to take the call. When Yeji asked about it, Subin not only refused to explain but hurriedly said he had to go, telling her to wait. Though confused, Yeji nodded in agreement. Time passed, testing her patience. She called Subin, but he didn't pick up. On the other end, he was trying to handle work quickly to return, but the bar owner made things difficult regarding his time off. In the quiet park, Yeji sat alone when Songjeon called to ask when she would be back. At that moment, she suddenly remembered the other guy on standby. Thinking Subin wouldn't return, she told Songjeon that he didn't need to wait tonight. On the other end, a calm, deep voice said he would always wait for her. Subin's figure disappeared behind the bar door, but he didn't go to Yeji. Instead, he found a dark alley, collapsed, and cried uncontrollably. His phone kept ringing, a symphony of despair from both Yeji and Daeun, but he ignored it, setting it aside as tears streamed down his face. He cried until he was exhausted and eventually fell asleep. When Yeji called again, he no longer answered, but a figure appeared beside him. It was Daeun. Seeing Yeji's call, she picked up, and her voice on the line left Yeji stunned. Yeji asked about Soo-bin, but Daeun responded with sweet lies, claiming she would take care of him. Daeun's words created a growing distance between Yeji and Soo-bin. In the end, with Daeun's interference, a misunderstanding took hold. Yeji believed that Soo-bin had chosen to be with Daeun and decided she would no longer care about him. Memories resurfaced, this time about Daeun. The debt between her and Soo-bin originated from tuition fees he could not pay. Not wanting to owe her, he had taken on part-time work to repay her. Daeun's feelings for Soo-bin had begun in the very first days of the school year, and ironically, it was Yeji who had unknowingly sown the seed. Seeing Daeun's piano skills, Yeji casually introduced Soo-bin to her, inadvertently creating an opportunity for a one-sided love to bloom. Meanwhile, Yeji's own aura continued to shine brightly. She was kind and loved by the entire school, and her personal locker was always full of love letters. Even Sena came to her under that aura, seeking help against bullies. When Sena didn't receive immediate assistance, she did something no one expected. She became the first student in school to pay Yeji for protection, an act that left Yeji deeply annoyed. Not long after, Yeji received a letter from Sena expressing her disappointment. Yeji decided to take action. She didn't scold her, but instead pulled Sena out to take a photo together in front of everyone. Yeji declared that from now on, Sena would be her friend, and of course, she returned all the money. Back in the present, Soo-bin's weakness and Daeun's schemes had once again hurt Yeji. Facing continuous insults, she decided to give up on him once and for all. Memories of a dark day resurfaced. During the freshman introduction event, Yeji had become the star of the auditorium. She was cheered onto the stage, and as she played the first notes, the large screen suddenly flashed and then went silent. A nude photo of Yeji appeared before hundreds of eyes. The audience was shocked, and Yeji froze in place. Although Soo-bin reacted immediately, rushing onto the stage to cut the power, it was already too late. Returning to the fateful call, Yeji confronted Daeun, but she had already hung up. Yeji called back, only to be met with silence. She had no choice but to go find Songjeon. She saw that he was truly waiting for her at home, and a mix of guilt and warmth spread through her. Yeji tried to act calm and sat down. She cleared her throat softly as a signal, and Songjeon turned to tease her with a playful look. He didn't scold her, which put her at ease and allowed her to focus on recording. Her first attempt was a failure, but she quickly regained her composure and completed it flawlessly. Songjeon listened to her singing, and he couldn't help but be captivated. The next day in class, Songjeon asked Yeji about Soo-bin's condition. Hearing that name, she stammered, unable to clearly explain their relationship. In the dance studio, Sena accidentally twisted her ankle. During the break, the teacher called her into the office, and an unexpected piece of good news arrived. She had been nominated for a full scholarship for the next year. Although her grades were slightly short, she had received an exceptionally heartfelt recommendation letter. Sena was overjoyed but couldn't help wondering who had quietly helped her. As she returned to class, she hadn't even finished telling Yeji the news when Daeun interrupted, breaking the moment. With a smug expression, Daeun congratulated Sena on the scholarship. Though a little surprised, Sena politely thanked her. Immediately, doubts began to spread among the classmates. Sena naively thought she was just lucky, but Daeun acted as if she had orchestrated everything. When the truth was revealed, Sena's smile vanished, her joy turning into humiliation. Seeing her best friend about to explode, Yeji tried to stop her, but Sena no longer heard anything. She vented all her frustration, unleashing harsh words directly at Daeun. After speaking, Sena turned and stormed off in anger. The fury boiled inside Daeun. How dare a poor girl like Sena stand up to her? Yeji immediately went after Daeun, seeking revenge. She confronted her about Soo-bin, and now there was no friendship left between them. They were simply rivals, standing on opposite sides of the battlefield. Sena, still carrying her anger, ran straight to Juhyeok. She saw him fumbling to open a water bottle, snatched it, and drank it down in one gulp. Once her thirst was quenched, her anger surged anew, and the first words out of her mouth were curses directed at Daeun. Seeing Sena so upset, Juhyeok performed a silly, clumsy dance to make her laugh. Though ridiculous, his awkward sincerity softened her anger, and a smile unexpectedly appeared on her face. Perhaps in that moment, a special feeling was planted in her heart, and her feelings began to grow for Juhyeok. As darkness enveloped the city, in her lonely room, Daeun began to carry out her malicious plans. A phone call was made, and an order was given to gather every piece of damaging information, every stain that could ruin Yeji and Songjeon. A ruthless revenge scheme had begun. The day of the final art exam arrived, and the atmosphere in the multimedia room was tense and full of anticipation. Yeji's eyes unconsciously searched for Su-bin's usual seat, and the empty space filled her with a vague sense of anxiety. Songjun, sitting right beside her, sensed everything. Though a small spark of jealousy flickered within him, he chose to accept the truth. The competition officially began, and the contestants took turns performing, shining briefly before retreating backstage. After Sena's outstanding performance, it was finally Yeji and Songjun's turn. But as Yeji stepped onto the stage, the ghosts of the past surged back, suffocating her. She stood there, trembling with fear. Seeing this, Songjun gently suggested that she could step back, but in Yeji's eyes burned an unshakable determination. After a brief hesitation, she took a deep breath and pushed past her fear. Yeji moved to the center of the stage. Songjun knew she was still tense, so he leaned close and whispered for her to sing toward him. His words were like a lifeline. Yeji no longer trembled. The melody rose, and her voice perfectly blended with his playing. Together, they transformed the stage into a sanctuary of emotion. Their performance captivated everyone, but just at the height of their applause, dawn struck. The school's sound system was hacked, and after a burst of piercing noise, a recording was played. It was a conversation between two men, falsely claiming that Yeji often accepted bribes to help her friends. The clapping faded, replaced by whispers and suspicious glances directed at Yeji. But before the recording could finish, a figure suddenly appeared. Su-bin strode decisively straight toward Daeun. He didn't want Yeji to be humiliated any further. With a firm hand, he shut off the recorder and turned to scold Daeun. The situation mirrored what had happened before. Although Su-bin had saved Yeji, her image was once again severely tarnished. Yeji stood on the stage, furious at Daeun's vile actions, and even more hurt by the whispers and judgment from the crowd. Before she could react, the teacher called her into the office. Su-bin could only stand there, stunned, completely powerless. Not only Yeji, but Ju-hyuk was also caught up in his own troubles. He had stepped into the highly competitive world of being a trainee. With abundant energy and a sense of humor, he always aimed to dominate the stage, turning himself into the main character and inadvertently reducing others to minor, overshadowed roles. Naturally, this made him appear selfish in their eyes. In front of the camera, they were close teammates, but behind the scenes, their irritation seeped everywhere. Realizing this, Ju-hyuk quickly withdrew. After every practice, he bowed his head in apology. Even when a guy in a white shirt didn't hesitate to scold him. But a boy in black patted Ju-hyuk on the shoulder, offering words of encouragement, playing the role of a kind older brother. The trap was set as soon as the company representative left. The boy in white suggested drinking alcohol. Ju-hyuk, who had never tasted a drop before, panicked and refused. Seeing his refusal, the white-shirted boy became angry. At that moment, the boy in black reappeared, skillfully intervening and suggesting that Ju-hyuk could just have a non-alcoholic drink. Tempted, Ju-hyuk trusted him and drank it all. This was only the beginning of the cruel bullying he would face later. On a street corner, Sena was scrolling through her phone when she accidentally came across a video of the two bullies mocking Ju-hyuk. Without hesitation, she stood up and went to find him at the company. By then, Ju-hyuk was completely drunk and unconscious. The bullies, seeing his miserable state, plotted to ruin his reputation. Then the boy in black finally removed his mask, sneering that he had always disliked Ju-hyuk and that everything had been part of his plan. Just as the two bullies were gleefully humiliating Ju-hyuk, a figure suddenly appeared in the doorway. It was Sena. They were startled and even more frightened to see that her phone was recording everything. With evidence in hand, the bullies panicked and immediately fled. Fortunately, Sena arrived just in time. She gently approached and checked on Ju-hyuk. When he recognized her familiar face, a flicker of relief appeared in his drowsy eyes. Yeji, however, was not as lucky. She wandered through the school grounds when Songjun quietly approached. He subtly changed the music playing in her headphones. Yeji was surprised to discover that this usually cold young man also had a playful side, and she responded cheerfully. Their initial light-hearted conversation gradually became tinged with ambiguity. To break the awkwardness, Yeji teased him, but for Songjun, it was the moment he decided to risk everything. He confessed his feelings to Yeji. Yeji was stunned by the unexpected confession, and before she could react, he turned and walked away, leaving her with a racing heart. Su-bin, hidden in the shadows, witnessed everything. Yeji's smile at Songjun's confession said it all. Su-bin realized that the door for him had closed, and he decided to leave that place behind. Before leaving, he went to find Daeun and spoke decisively, telling her they would never see each other again. Daeun, hearing that the person she loved was about to leave, felt completely hollow. Memories of the past flooded her mind, but it was all over. Su-bin returned all the money he had borrowed from her and severed all ties between them. Afterward, he arranged to meet Yeji at the park as a final farewell. For the first time, Su-bin Soobin let go of all his burdens. He recounted the entire story between him and Daeun. Yeji listened and forgave the timid young man. Seeing that the person he loved held no resentment, Soobin finally summoned the courage to confess his feelings. His confession planted a seed of hope in Yeji's heart that they could finally be together. But not long after, Soobin's graduation arrived, leaving Yeji shocked. Losing the person most important to her, she felt as if she had lost her soul. Yeji sank into endless sorrow, desperately trying to reach him. In vain. In the end, she had no choice but to turn to Daeun, and they arranged to meet at school. The two former rivals were now left with only shared pain. Having lost Soobin, Yeji could only turn to Songjeon as a friend, while Daeun, having alienated everyone, returned to her usual loneliness. Amid the chaos of broken hearts, only two people were fortunate enough to find light. Saina excelled with her talent and won first prize in the competition, and Juhya, through relentless effort, earned the title of most popular. During that time, a special feeling began to grow in Saina's heart for Juhya. At the classroom door, Saina saw Daeun handing lipsticks to other students, and an uneasy feeling rose within her, but she did not want to confront it. During the break, Daeun approached Saina, and their conversation seemed fine at first. But when Daeun began to mock her, claiming that Saina's win was thanks to her, the atmosphere immediately grew tense. Saina knew exactly what Daeun was implying, and replied that she had only danced for fun and still won. Then sarcastically pointed out that Daeun had to hand out lipsticks to please others. Daeun tried to argue, but Saina didn't give her a chance. Saina pressed her until Daeun lost her composure and spoke harshly, calling Saina an ungrateful beggar. Hurt, Saina sharply responded that she had never asked anything from Daeun, and that what Daeun did was merely relying on others. Feeling mocked for depending on her parents, Daeun refused to back down and demanded that Saina return her scholarship money. Saina realized she had been deceived and, furious, shouted at her, but Daeun, confident that Saina had no money, continued to humiliate her. The argument escalated to its peak when Yeji, seeing Daeun yelling, stepped in to intervene but was shoved down. Anger flared within Yeji, and without hesitation, she delivered a powerful slap to Daeun. Daeun immediately played the victim, crying that she had lost everything. Seeing her fake display only fueled Yeji's anger, and she spoke out about all of Daeun's wrongdoings. After saying her piece, Yeji turned and walked away decisively, ending the conflict. After all the grudges with Daeun had been settled, Yeji returned to her familiar park. A bottle of milk was unexpectedly placed in front of her, and she thought it was from Soobin, but when she looked up, it was Songjeon's face. Songjeon could sense that her feelings of longing were still intact, and he decided to share a secret. He told her that before leaving school, Soobin had come to see him. At first, Songjeon had intended to send Soobin away, but when he realized why Soobin had come, he let him in. Soobin stayed and poured out all his feelings, entrusting Songjeon with everything about Yeji. Hearing Songjeon's story, Yeji finally accepted the truth that the person she loved would never return. But toward Songjeon, who had patiently pursued her all this time, her heart began to waver. Some time later, the senior from before reappeared, releasing an edited video to slander Yeji. To prove her innocence, she did not hesitate to respond, immediately uploading all the original photos and videos online. With Yeji's influence, the post spread rapidly, and the truth was finally revealed. Months later, Yeji's life gradually returned to normal. During the days without Soobin, she became a popular TikToker, often interacting with her audience and singing for them. Meanwhile, Songjeon, unable to be with Yeji, turned to the musical instruments in the school's common room to ease his feelings. Though they could not move forward together, an invisible bond seemed to remain between them. While Yeji sang during a live stream, elsewhere, Songjeon, almost as if connected by intuition, played the same song. After each band performance, Yeji kept her old habit of checking the letters in her locker. The pain from her loved one's departure was still there, but life had to go on. She continued to move forward and still visited the common room to listen to the melodies of others. And then, during one of her visits there, a familiar figure appeared. Soobin had returned to surprise her. He quietly approached and gently took her pinky finger. In that moment, Yeji's whole world seemed to stop. She realized that the person her heart had never forgotten was standing right in front of her. That simple handhold made Yeji understand that it was the confession she had been waiting for all along. The film ends here. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye until next time. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming movie summaries.